Hello, and welcome to a new season of the Breadwinners. I'm Rachael Ellison, your guide on this journey, where we're going to talk about the evolving dynamics of work and well-being. This season, we're diving into a concept that's close to my heart and that I think is crucial in today's world. How can we shift our approach to work to not just survive it, but thrive in it? For 5 seasons, we've talked about the hustle, the relentless push and pull of work and life in a system that is not set up to support people who have lives outside of work. Now I want to shift our conversation. Is it possible that in 2024, healing has become the new hustling? Let's find out together. This season on the Breadwinners. Through my work as an organizational consultant focused on future of work and an executive coach working with leaders coping with this change, I've seen firsthand the seismic changes that are happening in our culture. These observations led me to really synthesize my ideas into a framework and a strategy to help us navigate the times that we're in right now. So how did I get here? A pivotal moment, I was facilitating a panel discussion on the future of work and diversity and inclusion for 250 people. And I was giving an intro. I've been preparing for it for weeks. And I looked at the panelists and looked at my notes, and my mind just blanked. Wasn't like an off day. I should have had a bigger breakfast. It was a clear sign of the chronic stress that I had been ignoring, like as a rule. And that moment was my wake up call. Like, I can't do this anymore. This wasn't the only sign that I'd gotten, but it was the final one for me to realize I had to do something else. I was relentless about, and you all have heard me talk about integrating work and life, but I had overlooked my own well-being entirely. Like, it's ironic, right? Like, as an expert on work family dynamics, I was so focused on helping my clients that I just missed all the signs in my life. I experienced since 2016 one major challenge and transformation after the other. There were economic shifts, there was sickness, there was divorce, there were moves, there were high pressure jobs. It was all of it. And I just went through it saying, it's fine. I got this, right? Because we all do that. We all need to sort of head down and power through. That's such a common trope for everyone as we, have been navigating this crazy change and uncertainty since COVID and before. But after that blanking out day, I decided to focus on and better understand how we as professionals can handle the pressures we face, because we can't keep burning out. How do we think about new ways to promote resilience beyond keeping up the hustle? So as I navigated my own transformation, everything from yoga to mindfulness to acupuncture to psychedelics to therapy, I began to see how personal insights that I was having were directly applicable. Like, people could really use some of the things I was learning both in organizations and in their own lives. This journey wasn't about me. It resonated with people who I was working with, clients who would come to me, top of their fields, government, advertising, higher ed, and say, like, why isn't this working anymore? Is anyone else noticing how much it's not freaking working? And what do we do about it? And asking me, do you know of anything that we can do? I started to synthesize what I had learned as a coach, as an individual, as someone who had been leading future of work efforts, looking at well-being, looking at strategic flexibility, and reading all the research that's out there from the Surgeon General, from Deloitte, best-in-class researchers who could not put their finger on what the future holds, but could say, hey, this is what's going to get us where we want to go, to a healthier workplace. So I put together this framework. It's called SHIIFT, stands for Security, Horizon, Impact, Fluidity, and TAS. It's this multifaceted approach, but it's designed to help all of us, leaders and teams, individual contributors, adapt to the way that the workplace is changing. So let's start with security. Things are constantly changing, and we need to protect our physical and digital security, of course. But we talk about psychological safety, Amy Edmondson's work, right? How do we create organizations like that, right? How do we create that kind of safety where we can talk to each other and express different conflicting views, where we can ask questions and be curious about each other's experiences and perspectives, and do that in a thoughtful way without causing major conflicts? How do we prevent bullying from happening in the workplace? And sure, there are people who are going to say, hey, that's the way it is. Like, put on your big boy pants, right? I was at a conference this summer where essentially I went to several different sessions where lawyers were showing cases people brought against their employers and sued for millions of dollars. We can't just buckle down and ignore this reality. There's also financial security. People should be paid in a way that is commensurate with what they're doing at their work. And one thing that we've been talking about a lot on this podcast is paid leave. When you or a family member needs your time, attention, and effort to coordinate this insane medical healthcare system we're living in, that you are not worried about being able to feed yourself and your family at the same time, that you're getting paid. So that's security. Horizon. Thinking about growth and development in a new way. How do we ensure that people are prepared for challenges that are facing us as we advance around the future of work? Focusing not on titles, pedigree, but looking at, do you have the skills you need to operate, right, in this reality? Impact is the next one. It's about understanding and measuring the real value we bring to our work. One of the things that happened when we switched from a fully in-person model of work during the pandemic, and I worked on this a lot, how do we look at performance based on outcomes instead of watching to see how many hours someone's putting in, either online or in their seat? What are they actually getting done? And to be honest, I don't think a lot of people know how to measure that well. It's about measurement. And it's also about what we're learning, what the research says, is that workers aren't just stressed about workload and burnout. They want to know that their work means something, that there's significance, that there's some recognition. Impact isn't just about what we do, it's why it matters to ourselves, to our teams, and to the larger organization. Fluidity, it's about embracing flexibility that we need in this modern work environment. Now, I have seen just bananas-ness going on, right? We've seen this dramatic shift in how work gets done from remote to hybrid. And now we're seeing all of these kind of rigid return to office policies. We're seeing performance being measured by how many times your key card goes in the door of an office. How ridiculous is that? Right? But fluidity is not just about where we work. It's about how we adapt to change, be able to sort through the priorities of our lives and ensure that we have productivity even when things are really uncertain and scary. The final piece is ties. That's looking at belonging and connection. People are feeling so isolated and alone. So how do we create a culture where we feel connected to each other, where we feel a sense of belonging and we're valued for our contributions, for our care for each other, despite physical differences or work schedules? How do we create those environments in our workplaces, and how do we engage? Because after all of the changes that we've been going through, we're just dysregulated. We'll talk about that more over the course of the series, but we just are so in hyperdrive, or we just want to numb out and get the heck out of there and quiet quit, as many people are doing. I can tell you about clients and their experiences and what I've seen and what I've talked to HR leaders and senior leaders in their own organizations about. But let's get to the numbers for a second. TELUS Health had a mental health index this past year that revealed that high risk mental health in the working population jumped from 14% in 2019 to 23% in 2023. 41% of workers felt more sensitive to stress in 2022 compared to 2019. And this isn't just feelings. I've spoken with so many leaders who, just because of the way that they were, quote unquote, raised in the workplace, are like, hey, let's not talk about feelings. That's a nice to have. Those are great soft skills, right? But there's quantifiable changes that are impacting how we work. The Geneva Association study on mental health and insurance indicated that the increases in mental health challenges post-COVID-19 are crazy. 53 million more cases of depressive symptoms and 76 million anxiety disorders. The costs, both to productivity and in terms of mental health bills, are going to be massive, in the trillions. And also something that we have to keep in mind here too is that we act, and I swear to God, I did this for 45 years. We act like poor mental health is just an emotional burden, right? Just get over it, get your head on straight, right? But when we look at the data, when you read folks like Gabor Mate, who talk about the myth of normal, the connection between mind and body, we're seeing this is a health emergency, right? It's linked with 20 emotional mental health challenges and difficulties are linked with a 29% increase of heart disease and a 32% higher risk of stroke. And these are just some of many examples. But they're not just numbers. They're all of us. These are the lives that we're living, and they're at stake. So the last thing that I just want to skill requirements and job roles are shifting. Job skills have changed 25% since 2015, and this trend's going to continue. And the thing is, this whole idea of let's return to office, let's go back to the way it was, where, by the way, in 2019, we were all burning out anyway. But this idea that we can revert to a reality that works is garbage. There is no way to do it. We have to figure out new ways. As we go through this season, each of us, whether we're leaders or team members, has to figure out how to get through this. I've been reading all of these great thinkers around mindfulness. One of those teachers, the woman named Tara Brach, and she said something that just hit me hard. And it's kind of what this season's all about. In addition to healing is the new hustling, which is my favorite. When well-being is blocked, it's because we're feeling separate. The moments that we start coming into presence in the life that's here with each other, we discover a larger sense of belonging. We wake up out of that separate self that's wanting and fearing, and we're resting in a larger sense of being. That's where well-being comes from. Just to distill this for people who are kind of freaked out by mindfulness, as I used to be, and thought everything was just too woo-woo, we are all carrying these burdens of change alone. We can talk to each other about it, but there is this intense loneliness. What I want to do this season is bring us together. We're going to talk about our own experiences, gonna take questions and answer questions from you. Each of the first episodes is going to focus on one of those letters from the SHIIFT model. We have experts who are going to talk to us about their research, about their innovation. And I can't wait. There's some really great conversations and there's a lot to learn from them. We're also going to have a couple bonus episodes. We're going to talk about AI specifically and what that's doing to our workplace culture. I can't wait to share it with you. My focus, professional and personal, is to talk about this stuff, to mirror it back to you so you can better understand it, and to be able to encourage individuals, innovators, organizational leaders to dive in and swim around in this new world of work with us. So stay tuned for this. Think about how the SHIIFT framework can help you on your journey. How do you create a greater sense of security at work? How do you look for new opportunities and skills, find the impact in what you do, embrace the uncertainty, and connect to people? If you are a coach and client of mine, or if you've been in one of my trainings, or if you've listened to certain episodes of this podcast, you might have heard there's a guy named William Bridges who had this theory about transition that's been on my mind a lot lately as I've been putting this together. He says, isn't the changes that do you in, it's the transitions. And change is not the same as transition. Change is situational. The new site, the new boss, the new team roles, the new policy. Transition is the psychological process people go through to come to terms with the new situation. Change is external and transition is internal. And that's kind of what it's all about, right? We've been through so many changes in how and where and when we work. But those are external shifts that have happened to us in many ways. It's really about how we process these changes internally, how we make sense of them, how we adapt, not just in our routines, but in our minds. I mean, it's one thing to have a pandemic hit and start working from home. It's a whole other thing to mentally and emotionally adjust to being, working, and living in the same place for us, for our careers, our families, and our lives. And this is what I love about these conversations. It's not just about noticing those changes. It's about understanding the internal transitions we're all going through in response to those changes, figuring out how to navigate this new terrain, both outside and inside of us, all together. I hope I've given you something to think about. Remember, it's really not just about adapting to what's new. It's about understanding and sitting with the transitions that come with it. So if you've enjoyed our conversation today, there's more where that came from on the next episode of the podcast. We will be talking about having emotional, social security at work. What does that mean? We're going to talk to Dr. Joe Grasso of Lyra Health. So stay tuned for that. You can find us on Spotify, on Apple Podcasts, on all of the places. You can email us at the Breadwinners podcast at gmail.com. We have on what I'm still going to call Twitter, Breadwinners Pod. We have Instagram account, the Breadwinners Podcast. And we are going to post on all of those channels something called SpeakPipe, where you can record some thoughts or questions. Let's continue this conversation and support each other through it. Okay? See you next time.
This podcast is part of the Sound Advice FM network. Sound Advice FM, women's voices amplified.